Hello and welcome to the CMO's Guide to the Metaverse. I'd like to give a really warm welcome to everyone watching today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Isabel Perry, Director of Technology at Byte, part of Dept. Dept is one of the fastest growing digital agencies in the world, with over 2,000 people across EMEA and the Americas. We specialize in creative, technology, and data. And at Dept, we're becoming increasingly obsessed with the emerging technologies that are enabling new ways for brands to create immersive storytelling and inspire audiences. Together with Disguise, we're going to show you a glimpse into the metaverse today and bring to life how alternate realities are already transforming the way that consumers play, shop, work, and socialize.
And hello everyone, I'm Tom Rockhill. I'm Chief Commercial Officer here at Disguise. Disguise is a technology platform that enables teams to imagine, create and deliver spectacular visual experiences, installations and studio environments like this one. We've powered some of the world's most famous entertainment projects, and over the next 10 minutes, we are going to take you through a snapshot of what brands can expect when partnering with Dept and Disguise. So Isabel will walk through a number of extended reality scenes, skillfully navigating the metaverse.
Hey, I'm already over here. Are you guys joining me?
Yeah, let's go.
Here you are. Welcome to the Metaverse.
Thanks for having us. We'll be seeing you later. But in the meantime, I think we need to kick off somewhere a little bit more ambitious. And maybe a little bit lighter. Okay, we're getting a bit carried away. Can we go, maybe bring it back a bit down to earth? Okay, this one's just right. The term metaverse was first coined by Neil Stephenson 30 years ago in his sci-fi novel Snow Crash. Fiction continues to shape our vision for it, with Ready Player One coming to represent the metaverse in popular culture. For those of you who don't know those two references, you can think of the metaverse as a digital twin of our world, experienced in both augmented and virtual interconnected realities. A more concrete definition is somewhat elusive, but most people seem to agree that the metaverse is the successor to the internet as we know it today. And in the same way that the internet is just a wide set of protocols, technologies, languages, devices, and programmed experiences, the metaverse will be too. We'll experience the metaverse as a persistent and synchronous digital experience, meaning you won't be able to stop, pause, or reset it. And what I do or what you do will be mirrored in our respective metaverses or experience of the metaverse. There'll be no cap to the number of users, but each user will experience it individually and with complete autonomy. The metaverse will also be experienced across physical and digital worlds, and these experiences will be interoperable. You'll be able to translate one digital ID here or one digital ID in there across different digital environments. Crucially, the metaverse will also have its own economy, and because of that, a huge range of individual creators will benefit. But we'll also see the rise of new global companies that will even replace our sort of incumbent digital giants. In total, the metaverse will become the gateway to most digital experiences and a component of our physical ones. Now, I appreciate this might sound a bit far-fetched, or at least quite far off, but Epic Games recently raised $1 billion to fund their vision of the metaverse. Bloomberg estimates that the metaverse is already worth $800 billion. And as of just last Wednesday, you can even invest in the metaverse on the New York Stock Exchange. This metaverse fund was partly founded by a metaverse essayist called Matthew Bell, who I'd really recommend reading if you're interested in this area. But what does this all mean for people like us in marketing? Well, today the opportunity lies in moving beyond traditional display advertising towards creating experiences which are more engaging, more exciting, and dare I say it, possibly even less invasive than ads that we know them today. As a brand creating new products or experiences that you want to promote, you can release a digital version of these, free or paid, and people will want to use these and already do want to use these in games, virtual spaces, and digital platforms. This will then translate into sales in the physical world and will increasingly value and chase sales of digital items as well. And there are a lot of examples of brands doing this well. Recently, Star Wars created an incredible island within Fortnite where you could teleport down as Darth Vader to watch a clip from one of the new films. DJ Marshmallow performed to over 11 million concurrent viewers on Fortnite. Carly Kloss and Adidas created a selection of trainers that could be experienced within Decentraland. And I think it's worth calling out that sort of high-end fashion labels are embracing these technologies particularly quickly, with Balenciaga creating the most exquisite virtual fashion shows, and Gucci really leading the way with digital items, including creating their Dionysus bag in Roblox recently and selling it for more than the physical version of that bag. But today, we're showing you how these technologies that are going to form the bedrock of the metaverse are also available for brands to create the next evolution of immersive storytelling, interactive digital experiences, and spectacular live events. These technologies can even be used for unprecedented film production. Tom's going to break this down for us in a little bit more detail.
All right, thanks, Isabel. So just a quick intro. So Disguise is a technology platform that can support these shows, productions, and events. And whilst today may be the first time that many of you are hearing about us, you've likely seen our technology in action many times before. So if you've ever been to see Beyonce, Justin Timberlake, Rolling Stones at a stadium show, you will have seen Disguise products in action. If you've seen the New Year's countdown on the front of the Burj Khalifa, if you've ever watched the Eurovision Song Contest, or you've walked through the immersive lobby installation in the MGM Casino in Macau, you will have seen Disguise products in action. If you've watched the Super Bowl halftime show, Billie Eilish's live stream, or if you're watching it coming home on ITV Sports coverage of Euro 2020, you will have seen Disguise products in action. So we're a London-based business with offices all over the world and a support team and community managing projects 24/7, like the ones I just mentioned. We are the market-leading technology platform in concerts, events, shows, installations, and now growing in broadcast and film studio environments using LED instead of green screen. We're also the market leader in delivering XR spaces like this one, which is how we're able to blend the real and the virtual worlds and transport artists, actors, and presenters like ourselves into the metaverse. So we've mentioned the term XR a number of times, but what does XR actually mean? So XR, or extended reality, is an umbrella term for all of the types of reality relating to real-time video content. So VR, or virtual reality, is the technology where you wear a headset and you experience something firsthand in a digital realm. AR, or augmented reality, is the technology enabling digital graphics or props or characters to sit in amongst the real world from the viewpoint of a camera. And then mixed reality, or MR, is the ability to blend augmented reality in the foreground with LED backdrops or video content in the background to place us, real people, in the real world between two digital plates, if you like, a front plate and a back plate. So before we get carried away with the new realities, I'd like to show you what tools you need. So we're going to step backstage for a second. So I'm sorry to say we're not actually in space, we're actually teleporting anywhere, and we're just here in a stage in London. We're in Southwark, in fact, which is very glamorous. So this is an LED stage, and this is our office in Disguise. It's a pretty small space, so whilst you've been getting some quite nice views from the gym over here, some quite nice wide shots, we're actually on like a 3 meter by 3 meter LED stage. And the key elements are that you've got LED panels on the floor, we've got LED panels behind us, so we're essentially surrounded by video content, or able to be surrounded by video content. We've got 3 cameras, so we've got the one on the gym, and we've got 2 here. They're tracked using camera tracking technology. That camera tracking technology is generating camera data, which is being sent to Disguise. Disguise is a hardware and software products running the real-time engine, processing all of the graphics that you saw. In this case, it's Epic Games' Unreal Engine. And that camera data is then telling Disguise where the camera is in the physical space, where it's pointing, where it's directed, so that the Disguise products can generate those images and push them to the correct pixels on this stage that's sitting around us. So by combining all of these elements together, you're able to create a space that truly blends the real and the virtual worlds. And for us as presenters, we're able to see the content around us. We're able to interact with it. It's a really easy space to interface with. The team here can place augmented reality items in the foreground, which you're going to see shortly. And it's a lighting source as well. Now you'll notice at the edge, obviously we're just in a small space. We can only see the edge of the LED here, but you've been seeing the image extend all the way out. That's what we call set extension. And because in this technology we know where the real world is and where the virtual world is, we can blend the two and give a seemingly endless experience as the camera pans off into the virtual space. So those are all the elements you need to create this. Isabel, over to you.
So this should all seamlessly come together for my first stop in the Metaverse, where I'm going to be stepping into a virtual fashion show and choosing an outfit. This is obviously showing off quite a bit, but you can see how powerful and dramatic creating digital representations of your physical products can be. Anyway, this one's perfect. Spoiler alert, that wasn't actually me, but thank you so much, Maria. And none of these cars were for me either, because they're all for petrol heads. It's 2021, and I'm going to need something electric. I don't even know if this is a car, but it's definitely worthy of my Instagram. Let's take it for a spin around the world. Of course, flying cars aren't mainstream yet, but you can see how using extended reality, you can capture content seemingly from anywhere in the world without traveling beyond the small but mighty LED stage that we have here. In my case, I'm obviously just posting these to my Instagram, but as a brand, you could create entire cross-channel marketing campaigns using these production techniques. For our final event of the day, Tom and I are going to head to a cocktail party where we'll be joined by our panelists to discuss how brands are already bringing customer experiences to life in the metaverse. Let's go.
Welcome to the Meta panel. We're so excited to be joined by our panelists. Perhaps you could introduce yourselves. Paul, over to you.
Hi there, my name is Paul Doyle. I'm the Director of Product Management for the MetaHuman project at Epic Games. MetaHuman is an effort to think about how we populate the metaverse, both with digital humans for representation of ourselves, but then also the life itself required to bring these environments and worlds to life. So thinking about non-player characters and agents and assistants and so forth. So yeah, my job on the MetaHuman side of things is really focused on digital life and digital humans.
Thanks, Paul. And do we have Mado XR on the call?
Hello.
Brilliant. To kick things off, I'd love to start by asking the panelists a few questions. Paul Doyle, what is the metaverse and how are you experiencing it?
So that's an interesting question, because I don't think the metaverse is a well-defined thing. I think if you ask 10 different people what the metaverse is, you'll get 10 different and quite distinct answers. From my perspective, I think it is a direction rather than an outcome. I don't think it arrives as this sort of fully formed thing. I think we see pockets of it developing, and eventually there'll be this sense of, okay, we're now in the metaverse. We may not even call it that at that point. Really, it is this shift away from distinct communities and users and just separate processes, and instead looking at how social networks and video games and shared worlds and all of the different things that you can do online all kind of start to shift together into one place. And I think a lot of it is driven through the emergence of 3D content. We're in this place now heading very rapidly towards most things will have a digital representation, a digital double. And so I think that's going to be a massive driver for this. And I think when you look at what Apple recently announced with their photogrammetry stuff on their phones, they're by far not the only player in town when it comes to that sort of thing. Everyone is pushing towards real-time 3D content. It's pervasive and everywhere already. And I think the next step is, how do you rapidly and easily create shared spaces to give access to that content? So really, I guess I don't think there's a shared definition of the metaverse. I think it is the progression of technology primarily driven through 3D and gaming and social networks.
And Tom, is that how you experience it?
Yeah, Paul's far more articulate than myself, but I think for me and for us as a technology business, the metaverse is it's an ever-present, all-encompassing internet-based society space, whatever you want to call it, and it's a place where people can play, interact, make decisions, purchase things, work together, basically live our lives, but separated from the physical world, or let's say in harmony with the physical world. And I think what's happened over what's been interesting over the last 18 months or so is that we've seen two things happen really quickly. One is the technology has advanced so much so that we're able to be in this space and have this conversation, and the keen-eyed viewers at home might see that there's some flaws in the image and it's not, perhaps could look better in certain places. That stuff's only going to get better as processing gets faster, as the game engines get better and better. Those tools are going to get more and more advanced exponentially, and this stuff is really in its infancy. It's going to get better. So I think that the technology is moving so fast that it's possible to do things that have never been done before. I think the second thing is we've been in lockdown, like as a world, like as a globe, we've been in complete lockdown for large periods. And so I think people have had to think about what does it mean to connect and to interact and to go about our daily lives whilst we're in solitude, thinking about themes of isolation and that sort of thing. And we've all been looking to technology to help us do that, whether it's through Zoom or House Party or whatever apps or things that we've been looking to kind of connect with people and live our daily lives or simulate our daily lives. And so I think, on one hand, you've got the technology. On the other hand, I think you've got an understanding and an appetite to start harnessing these sorts of things to, live our lives in a different way, bearing in mind what we've been through for the last 18 months.
And with that all in mind, what opportunities are you already seeing for brands and even for artists?
I think it's really interesting. And we've seen, so we, as Disguise, we had one of these stages maybe 2 years ago that was being used, and now we have over 250, and they're being used for film production, broadcast, but largely it's brand experiences, it's corporate communications, it's teaching, it's education, it's all sorts of different things. And I think what we're seeing is that brands or artists can give a more tailored, a more personalized, in many ways, a more meaningful interaction with fans or consumers or customers or whoever it is they're trying to reach. You've got everything from the really, really immersive, let's say, and involved end, which is this, like we're in a virtual space, there's things happening all around us. And you can look at, you mentioned examples earlier of people performing in Fortnite. And we've seen people like J Balvin and Cascade doing shows inside the game from stages like this and transporting themselves into a completely virtual environment where avatars are experiencing, people as avatars are experiencing real people who are in a physical world surrounded by virtual elements, the true blending of the real and the virtual. You go from that to people like Billie Eilish, who did their live stream last year and was able to interact with fans coming in on Zoom calls or family members who are being ported in and giving them what felt like a personalized experience that you might not get in a stadium or around 50 or 100,000 people. But I think if you pull out even further, we're just starting to see things like augmented reality and digital graphics and real-time content in and around our day-to-day. So watching things like the NBA with people being piped in, crowds, that sort of thing, to the Euro basketball leagues, which are now having augmented reality and DJs and performances, all the way to some of the big opening and closing ceremonies you're going to see this year and some of the big events, which will also be, using a lot of this technology. So I think we're seeing it start to creep in, even if people aren't going to these full immersive spaces where you're immersed in virtual content.
And is that what you're seeing, Louis?
Yes, I think there's an interesting mix between reality and virtuality. And that's actually something that we have experienced, having the opportunity to work with several fashion designers that are quite interested actually in blending their own physical universe with almost a phantasmatic universe, something that belongs more to a dream. And a way for them to express this dream universe is to play with virtual reality. And what I think is very interesting with XR is that you are finding that the barrier between physical and virtual becomes very thin, and you are actually able to penetrate both worlds. And working especially in the fields of fashion, where image and dream is all about the image and the clothes and the experience that you have. We've been able to touch that, and through several of the productions, we have created worlds that don't belong to this earth, and we've had the opportunity of having real model walk onto those worlds, which was a fantastic experience. And so I really look forward into the future and seeing more of those kind of mixed reality and metaverse oriented production come along, and hopefully would be part of some.
why are extended reality immersive experiences so powerful?
Into crystal ball territory a bit. It's weird, you can project into the long term, no problem, but when you're talking about the next 5 years, you can kind of get called out if you're not quite on the money. I think we're in this place where you see mobile devices that are able to create, from photogrammetry, we're able to create 3D objects of anything in minutes. I think we've got simultaneously a much larger scale photogrammetry, being able to build complete environments. Then you have virtual production, the ability to be fully engaged and immersed in these worlds to produce different types of content. And then I think you have the flip side of that, which is the AR and VR, particularly AR. I think we're going to see this wave of devices and capabilities coming through, whether that's AR glasses or what's possible off of a handset. We're expecting transformation in mapping applications even. So I think we're going to end up with this blurring of lines between digital and real world because of our ability to create accurate digital representations of what truly exists. And so I think there's a ton of potential there. I just don't want to be too nailed down on it just yet. But it's incredibly exciting time to see this. I've worked in 3D 25 plus years, and seeing us go from offline linear content now into real-time interactive content with incredible fidelity, and now starting to see that content creation capability reaching everyone. We're going to see this eruption of 3D assets, 3D aggregation tools, AR applications, VR applications. I think my expectation, my hope is much like the internet and mobile were major transformations, major kind of technical ages. We're about to hit this 3D interactive AR age, technical age. And so, for me, it's going to be awesome.
Thanks, Paul. And I'd also just like to take this moment to say we will be doing a Q&A from the floor later. So if you do have questions, please just send them through on the Zoom chat. But now over to Mado XR. I think a really great example of what Paul was just speaking about is the work that you've recently done for Balmain. Can you tell us a little bit more about the full winter 2021 XR fashion presentation? What sort of challenges did you have? And I guess what does the project showcase in terms of the future of extended reality?
It was a very interesting project. To be fully honest, it was unfortunately a bit last minute. We wish we had a bit more time to go even deeper with Olivier and the team at Balmain into this moon universe that we created for the fashion show to happen. The whole purpose of the collection was journey. When you're working with a fashion brand, with a designer, you always start with a concept. I was saying you always start with the dream. You start with the dream of the designer, the idea that he has or she has behind the collection, and he tries to incarnate it. And the fashion show is just an extract from that. It's a moment that is taken to actually put the clothes into a background that is for the audience to perceive it the best they can. So they came to us with this idea of having a journey, and they were hesitant in where to take that journey, and so they wanted to shoot with airplanes first. So they were able to secure the location of Roissy, which was obviously because of COVID, it was all closed down. So they had the opportunity of shooting with the Air France plane, which obviously looks really good. But they wanted to take the collection elsewhere, to some place that obviously would seem more inaccessible. And the idea came on with the moon and space. And obviously, it's a bit difficult to send a whole team of models in space for a fashion show. So they were quite hesitant into what to use. And we are very happy that this shows Mado XR to actually develop the scenography and the visuals to be able to take the collection there. So it was really an iterative process after that, selecting with them and basically going back and forth, iterating onto which looks would go where. because obviously in XR you have a lot of technicality in terms of balance of color, balance of light, and obviously with a fashion film you need to have high fidelity in the way you are showing the clothes and showing the collection. So we wanted to also to create a universe that had not too bright colors, because the collection was really highly colored and they had a lot of reflection. So it was really an iterative process. Them having this great idea of bringing a fashion journey into outer space, us iterating and reassuring them about the capability of the XR technology, and making sure that basically we would welcome them in an environment that would show the collection the best possible in terms of image, in terms of color, in terms of choice of camera, in terms of rendition generally. So really it was this iterative process. And I believe at the end they were very happy about the results. It was quite a hard learning curve. It's like some projects are when you're dealing with a new technology, because we've done previously only a much smaller show for Nicolas Lecourt-Mention. She's a young transsexual designer, having won the Adam 2019 prize. It was a much smaller show. We created a lot of really cool universes with her. But before Balmain, we've never worked with such a large brand. And obviously, working with the large clients like that, we have a lot of steps to be able to actually validate the fact that they would be using a new technology. So hard learning curve, iterative process, being able to reassure them into showing them that the technology and the potential was there. And yeah, I believe at the end, they liked the journey as much as we did.
Awesome, thank you. And Joni, could we go to the next question, please? Thank you very much. I'd love to ask Paul Doyle now what the how does the metaverse enable the need for long-term and like the deep consumer engagement that we were just hearing about from the Balmain project?
So without retreading too much, the idea of the metaverse is just a tag for a general direction of 3D content and social networks and so on. I suppose the permanence of identity, these rich 3D interactive environments that allow people far more sense of presence of self, but also you can bring digi-doubles of objects into those worlds. People can not only look at them, they can interact with them. If it's something mechanical, you can operate it. If it's something you can drive it, you can wear it. I think there's a certain set of senses that can be engaged through this that can't otherwise be engaged right now. And I think that permanence also allows, you can have a constant presence. I can imagine there being game worlds where it's sponsored zones or particular places you go to. I think the challenge with it is doing it in a way that is not jarring. Certainly, the way that Epic looks at this is we're not interested in becoming another ad network. We're interested in how do we enable creators and audiences to connect to each other. And so I think the work is there that's going to be there is how do I make a compelling experience? Because I think long-term engagement will come through people enjoying themselves rather than how do I leverage this to just get eyeballs.
And Tom, we've just seen a fraction of what Disguise can do, but can you tell us a little bit more about sort of what makes Disguise as a company that's been traditionally working in live events well placed to serve as this portal into a metaverse?
Very grand description, but I think first and foremost what's interesting is that Disguise or all of the surrounding technology components, this ecosystem of tools that's helping to drive this. Even Epic Games themselves, none of us have, this is so new that all of us are getting into it from completely different angles. And Epic Games have the background of creating, super rich environments essentially for gaming. They're driving the game Fortnite, and they're using that now in all of these sort of consumer-facing or production environments. And Disguise is the same. What gives us a good kind of into this world is that, for 15 years or 20 years, we've been solving really complex video problems, essentially, and trying to figure out how to give U2 the most spectacular stadium show that they could in 2006, or how to, create that moment when Beyonce goes on stage that, it just the video supports her performance, and the whole thing, creates that essence of show. And so I think the tools that we've developed have helped us to do that. So we're solving really hard video problems to create something spectacular, something immersive, but ultimately something really engaging, as Paul said, giving people enjoyment and kind of telling a narrative and supporting a narrative or a creative brief or whatever it is you're trying to deliver. And that's our point of view, is like, we want to solve these types of challenges to create something spectacular that really taps into, the psyche of the person that's watching it, or your consumer, or whatever it is.
Yeah, nice. And there's a very intrigued audience watching us. So before I begin to take some questions from the floor, I guess I'd love to know what the real potential here is, and if you're going to be able to, if you're going to give any recommendations to brands, what would they be about where to start with technologies like this? Paul, do you want to kick things off?
The sense of the metaverse, these emerging platforms. So I think if you do not have futurists and technologists on your team, it's going to be very hard to pitch these things. You have to have a deep ingrained understanding of what's happening and how fast things are moving. I think technology is never the solution by itself. It's a lever, it's a capability. Much like when I'm talking to companies or artists and they're concerned, well, MetaHuman creator thinks it's so trivial to create a character. What's in it? How do I help? And I think it's key to remember, the creative endeavor can't be automated. You can take the dog work, the time-consuming effort out of things, but you should always fall back to the core creative path of things. Our path at Epic is thinking about how do I augment the artistic process, rather than how do I replace it. I don't think machine learning approaches and so on can just outright replace these things. I think they'll make them much faster and easier, but talent always comes through, it always shines through. So there's two recommendations. I guess the third one is, don't be afraid to jump in yourselves. When I'm saying these are mass market capabilities being built by Apple, by Facebook, by Epic, by Unity, that's true. These are designed for all of us to be able to use. So I think playing with them yourself, like go to there's a slight pitch, metahuman.unrealengine.com. It's free. You can go in there and see how easy it is to create a character. Then you start getting a sense of, okay, if I had this, then it meant that my turnaround time for a pitch could be very, very rapid to really blow a client away. And I think it's just, it's kind of back into that first recommendation. You have to get a good sense of these tools. You have to be familiar with them. And then you have to remember that they're not a solution by themselves. It's still the core of the idea, the pitch and so forth has to come through there. But an awareness of all of the different points of publishing for this kind of content, it's not going to be traditional anymore. It's not going to be, well, I do a print and maybe I'll do a TV spot. It's going to be, okay, which of these virtual worlds, if it's Fortnite and I have pathways for getting brand into there, how am I going to do that? If it's Roblox, how am I going to do that? Maybe we want to build our own experience like the Balenciaga thing and stream that. How do I achieve these things? So I think the potential for branding and marketing is colossal, because I don't think we've had the opportunity to reach people in a compelling way. I think, everyone's switched off of TV advertising. Most people are running blockers. You're force-fed advertising. And I think building experiences that make people want to have them, that's the way through to success here. So finally, the technology platform is available for that. So I'm very excited to see what you all get up to.
And Tom, do you have any recommendations for brands that want to jump in?
I think with I think like Paul, if you've got technologists or 3D people in your teams, or you have access to them in an agency, like jump in. These tools are available. Unreal Engine is free. MetaHumans is free. Disguise is software. You can get free training and everything from us as well. So the tools are there to learn. So just get started. I think like ultimately, these are tools. The technology is there to serve a purpose. It's not the be all and end all. So, Spectator, as great as you can make the technology work for you and do something that's not been seen before, that has to support a narrative or creative brief. That's what's really going to talk to consumers or people at home or whoever it is you're trying to reach. So I'd say, get familiar with the tools, the language, all of the stuff that's out there. It's all available to use. But at the same time, don't let this cloud, don't let the terms and the jargon and this sort of, what's the word? I don't know, the hype around all of the products and technology and everything cloud what it's there for, which is to serve a purpose, to deliver a creative brief or to deliver a narrative. And so I'd take that first and figure out how these tools can support that. Like how can the metaverse or how can, augmented reality or mixed reality support what it is you're trying to do? Like the guys at Mado XR said that, they wanted to create a much more involved creative process for their client. And we're able to do that using these tools. The tools didn't come first. So I'd say that's the way forward.
Yeah, we always say that at Dept. It's like technology isn't the strategy. There's the strategy which technology needs to be enabling. And what about you, Mado XR?
Well, I completely agree with Tom on this. I think the technology, XR, whatever else technology is, just the tool to produce whatever content you want. If you want a really, really nice artistic look, or just a simple show, everything is there for you. Is the limit really is your creativity and how many people you involve and how good they are, because that changes a lot also in what you're doing. Of course, all the tools that are available, like an Unreal Engine, the MetaHuman, makes it more easy for everyone to start. But to make something that is really, really nice, neat, and complete, it takes always some time, good efforts, and also a bit of experience to fix some bugs that you'll be having. But with the good people, you can do pretty much everything you want, and that's really what we like in Mado XR. Is just the limits are not there. The limits are in your mind or in the time you can have in a project. So that's really a really good thing to remember. And then also seeing other people doing XR work or just animatics also is very inspiring in the way you're creating your universes, because everyone has a different vision, a different approach to XR, and I think they're all good. Some may look cheap, but actually there's really, really nice ideas in there. And some may look really nice, but in the end it's very simple, technologically speaking. So there's really a combination of everything put together. And as far as I know, you can do pretty much everything.
Awesome, thank you. We've got enough time now to take some questions from the floor for a Q&A. So please send them in on the chat if you're not already, but I can see we have some questions. Tom, this one's probably for you. Did he say they're using LCD screens rather than chroma keying?
No, close, but not quite on. So LED screens, LED panels, rather than chroma keying. So yeah, you're right, but the essence is right. We're not using, this isn't a green screen, we're not keying out. So the image that you're seeing from the viewpoint of the camera here, you're capturing not just us sitting on the chairs, but this image behind us we can see as well. So you're capturing the LEDs in camera as well as us in person. There's no keying or anything like that happening. And I think if the wider shots that you've seen from the jib, what you're capturing there, if we can go to one of the wide shots perhaps, if that's possible. There we go. So what's happening, I'm going to break the illusion here, but what's happening is the edge of the LED screen is here. And then you can see where Disguise and the real-time technologies are kind of blending in the real and the virtual world. So it's kind of blending us into this this mixed reality space but it means that there's no keying happening. So what you're seeing in camera at that point is part LED and then part virtual environment. And Disguise, there's a lot of bits of technology that make this work. It takes care of all the really ugly nuts and bolts stuff of color calibration, spatial calibration to make sure that the illusion stands tall.
Next question. So this is all very much about projecting the camera view of people into a virtual space. But what about tech for easily mapping our human movements to an avatar?
That is probably a question for Paul. But what you've seen here is you've seen the MetaHuman, right? And if you go on, as Paul said, if you go on the MetaHuman website, you can start manipulating characters quite easily without having to be a 3D artist and understand how to build a rig and build textures and all of that sort of stuff. You can just go on and start playing around with it. You can drive those avatars by using traditional mocap techniques. So if you've got somebody who's wearing a mocap suit, we could have done it here today. It's just extra sort of an extra hurdle to take. We could have had someone maybe we'll do that for the next one. Someone in a mocap suit and somebody somewhere else in the building actually kind of driving the animation and driving actually talking and doing all of the conversation as well at the same time. Obviously this one was a MetaHuman, some of it was pre-recorded, but yeah, you can do that. So you can have live animation and everything driving those digital characters.
Yeah, and I think that's just to add to that, it's definitely an area that we're really excited about, just because you can do the real-time rendering of someone moving, and that opens up absolutely incredible production possibilities. And it's something that we were speaking about a lot in the run-up to this, of how cool it would have been if the MetaHuman that we have had throughout this had been actually, when we'd recorded all of the facial expressions, it's so much tighter if you use a mocap suit and the body is perfectly integrated with the face. But yeah, next time. Next question. We're seeing XR primarily experienced through the lens of a camera and viewed digitally from viewers. Where do you see XR technology crossing over to be experienced in live spaces? That's probably a question for you.
I can answer that one, yeah, and I'll tag into the Mado guys in case they've got an opinion on this as well. But really, the technology's here today. So this is kind of the leading edge of what's possible. And what you can see is this experience from the viewpoint of a camera. But that's not to say that this experience and these elements couldn't be possible from the viewpoint of a glass or some other device that would understand this imagery, understand where the set extension is and all of that stuff. What we're really driving towards are things like light field technologies, where we're capturing all of the lighting information in a space and able to replicate that from the viewpoint of a glass or an implant or whatever it is. So you could imagine that you'd be sitting around a boardroom table and you and me might be sitting next to each other, but actually there could be indistinguishable avatars that look like real people, of people in different spaces that we can see based on the technology that we're wearing or the technology that's implanted perhaps. So yeah, right now it's from the viewpoint of a camera, but this is, as I said, it's really just the start. This stuff's moving quickly, and if you research or about light field technology, I think you can see where this is going.
And Mado XR, do you want to add to that?
There's a lot of experiences that have been made, especially in the field of research, using cave space. So spaces not necessarily using LED walls, but sometimes it's with a video projector to be able to replicate training environments or any other of research-based application or molecule development or being able to visualize data. And in that sense, we are talking about XR, but in a more immersive way, like an immersive space where video, where content, where 3D can be literally all around you, and you're actually diving into the virtual world. So there's a lot of applications that come with it. Obviously, research, but also in the entertainment field, we are very interested into looking at projects that want to use XR for immersive experiences. If you're just thinking about an escape room, for example, that would be completely in XR, so either with video projection or with LED world, you can really figure out and write amazing stories. And the technicality of it is not that difficult, actually. The only limitation for now is the number of audience members that you can have inside the cave environment, inside the immersive environment, living that experience. What we've seen is currently experiences that can be that one or two people can have at the same time, so they can be living in the space and actually witnessing the experience. But as a GPU technology and rendering capability progress, and the frame rate actually of all these experiences progresses, we can see experiences in the future that have maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 people at the same time in the room. And this is a field that is very interesting to us, and will be soon partnering with hopefully with the University of Rennes, which is a university that really focuses on those displays, those immersive environment displays, to be able to create actually entertainment experiences in XR. So.
Yeah. And I guess to follow up from that, well, someone's asking if XR even works in live spaces, because the displays have to match the video animation with the viewpoint of the camera. So the person asking the question is guessing it looks quite skewed if you just walk through the set.
Yes, it does. So it is. Yeah, actually, Mado, do you want to answer this one and break the illusion and talk about the magic behind how some of this works?
You basically need to the magic behind XR is basically you match the field of view of either a camera in the setup that you guys are, or in an immersive space that I was just talking about. Let's say, for example, glasses. You're matching the field of view of those this device, that are camera or glasses, with the background, and this background is generated in order to give the illusion that you are literally in that space. That's the way the magic works. It's either through optical tracking, where the camera is positioned in the 3D space, or on any other type of mechanical tracking. You're basically telling the engine, Unreal or Unity or any other engine, where this viewpoint is, and generating a background, a field of view depending on this position. That's how the magic really happens.
But yeah, it does look like if you've ever been down and seen a pavement or a sidewalk drawing, you get it from the right angle and it looks perfect. But yeah, obviously, if you walk across the set, the image is slightly off center. But I think we've just heard that Paul Doyle is on the call, and there was a previous question I thought might be good for him to kind of touch on, which was about metahumans. And you know, we've seen some of the possibilities of metahumans in a very basic style in this presentation. But Paul, what's the future for that, and how can we get physical performance driving virtual performance, and where do you see that going?
Okay, hey everyone. That's quite broad. I think we'd say we just shipped version 1, and really the focus there has been to enable anyone to create a photorealistic digital human, but not a specific one. And I think where the technology is going is to be able to create specific identities from a scan off your phone or for a webcam or something like that. That's ideally where we'd like to get to. But I think you see in video games all of the background characters ultimately on Unreal Engine. For any photorealistic game, most of them are going to be done with MetaHuman. I think the challenge right now is around the animated performance there. We have Live Link in Unreal Engine. It does an okay outcome, but without getting too technical, trying to lip sync through automation of different faces, you don't get great outcomes. So you still require an animator to get involved. One of the companies we acquired, Cubic Motion. They specialize in this side of things. It's work that we're doing and digging in on. We also partner with a bunch of animation vendors, speech graphics and others. So I think there's a whole space around virtual influencers, streaming through avatars and so forth, and this technology has to be really trivial for people to use. But I think within a year or two, I think we're at a point that you'll be able to set up and create a character and live stream with good lip syncing within a day.
Thanks, Paul. It's I miss your godlike hologram answering from over our heads, but it's great that you're able to join.
Yeah, I feel diminished.
Yeah, I feel the opposite of diminished. No. We have a question around the software that's been used to create this stage. Tom, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so the stage itself is running is being powered by Disguise products. So Disguise is a software product that sits on hardware products that drive all of this real-time processing. The content is being driven by Unreal Engine. So Unreal Engine is running on Disguise, and all of the graphic design, all of the creative, all of the images that you see around us, all the kind of magic and the photorealism and these clouds and particles and everything else, that exists within Unreal Engine. So Unreal Engine and Disguise are partnered in a number of different ways, and work together to create this kind of like integrated solution whereby if you're a content person, you can design anything you really want, anything you can imagine, as you've seen us do today, inside Unreal Engine. And then Disguise is the software that understands the spatial calibration, color calibration, all of the really ugly nuts and bolts stuff that make the illusion work and deliver that to the physical world.
Thanks, Tom. And I'm going to ask for speedy answers for the last as we approach the end of this. But I really, really want to ask Mado, in which industry or industries do you see XR taking off first? I think, as I've mentioned, sort of high-end fashion is storming ahead, but on top of that. And the person asking this question wants you to take into account all of the investment that Facebook's done with Oculus.
So I think, first of all, to answer best this question is that VR is part of XR, of course, but it's kind of the opposite, where only one person can see the virtual space through the glasses, but it's actually the same. It's LED screens that are projected based on what orientation you have in the space. So it's basically experiencing the metaverse in your own way, and you are the actor of where you want to go, and you're just not fixed to where the camera is at in an XR stage. So I think there's really two ways. One for XR that we see today in an LED wall, which is for producing content and producing experiences that can be seen live and experienced with real people. So the different brands for this is, of course, fashion, as we mentioned, music clips, which are really used a lot nowadays, and of course the cinema and film industry, which we've all seen with the Mandalorian. And I think the capabilities and all those will become much higher as GPUs and CPUs and softwares as these guys in Unreal Engine are coming along. But when it comes to VR, I think it will be really focused on the costumer itself and really an experience that it can live by himself in a room or wherever they are and really live the experience as they wish to. And that's really two different branches.
Brilliant.
So,
and I think with that, we have hit time. But that's a good place to end, looking to the future. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today and for your time watching. And thank you so much to our panelists, Paul, for calling in, Quentin, Louis, and of course, Tom, my co-host. But yeah, huge thanks to everyone who joined to watch.